It's time for Football at 4 with Geoff Mosher.
My personality is I want to win badly. I want to win more Lombardis for Philadelphia and our fans. We got the greatest fans around, and I will do everything possible.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it's brought to you this hour by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet, take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. All right, a lot to dive into on this Football at 4 Wednesday edition. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. I don't see Geoff Mosher. I just kind of see an outline of Geoff Mosher. You appear to be just an outline of yourself. What's going on, man?
That is some terrible lighting right there. I tell you, I had to move to a different room, and I thought sitting in front of the window was going to be helpful for lighting, but that's pretty bad, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't. There you go. You're a
just that. How about let me see what I can do here. I mean, for the people listening, they're like, who cares? I can barely see you. But for the people watching, I look like
people listening are like, I can't see you at all.
What's that?
The people listening say, I can't see you at all.
Yeah, seriously. It's like the old Alfred Hitchcock trailer there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, go ahead and ask away, and I'll figure out something.
All right. Well, don't kill yourself over there. All right. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast is with us here on the Sports Bash Football at 4. All right. So a couple of things that we want to get into here. The whole Zach Ertz thing, I think. Do you think that the Ertz story will be written by the end of the week here?
It's very possible. It doesn't have to be, but I think it could possibly be written by the end of the week. I did speak to one team that had interest at one point in Zach Ertz and asked if there was any movement because it was after June 1st, and the answer I got was not much. So that tells you right there that things are still not exactly progressing quickly, at least as far as I asked. But I still don't think Mikey's going to be on the team when the season starts. I know Howie Roseman has said that he's a good player, that they're better off with Zach Ertz if they need to be, but you cannot, I believe, in my opinion, this is a very important year for Dallas Goedert. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute. 4th year. He is tight end 1. You have to find out if he's going to be healthy, and he's also already talking about contract extensions. You can't have both these guys on the team and put the coaches in the position where they have to almost take a good player and put him on the bench because they want to play a different type of personnel. That's just ugly and not necessary. Kind of went through that a little bit last year with having Alshon on the team, even though the team didn't want him there. So I cannot imagine that he's really going to be on this team.
You mentioned that you said they wouldn't budge. You're talking about the Eagles wouldn't budge. They wouldn't budge off what they're asking for?
No. It's just that I think it's more Zach's salary that teams are going to want to, either renegotiate, restructure, maybe ask him to take a pay cut because they don't think he's, worth what his contract says it is worth. And so in that regard, Zach has to be, I would think, amenable to it, and I'm not sure that he is right now.
Today, Dallas Goedert on a Zoom call said that the contract, he's had contract extension talks with the Eagles, and that, that's interesting because he says he'd love to stay in Philadelphia and get the extension done, but he's also 1 year away from free agency. So is he kind of weighing the options here?
Imagine having Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz in 2019 and having neither of them in 2000. Oh, no, this is 2020 and then neither in 2022, right? That's how fast things can change in the NFL. But I suspect that the Eagles will get something done with Dallas Goedert because, again, they're going to move forward with him. He has shown when healthy that he is a very good tight end and could possibly be a top 5 tight end in the league. He has those type of abilities. He catches the ball very well. He has explosion after the catch. Really, the only thing he hasn't shown is durability, the ability to play 16 games and be productive in every single game. He's had a lot of injuries along the way. So obviously that's a big question mark. And you notice that the Eagles have stockpiled a lot of kind of what I would call project-like tight ends. I mean, the kid from Buffalo, Tyree Jackson, who was a quarterback, is going to attempt to transition to tight end. They brought in last year Jason Kroom. They brought in Hakeem. His last name escapes me. Butler, is it?
Yes.
What is it?
Butler.
Yeah, Butler. Right. So The kid that they signed, Mike, out of Nebraska, Jake Stoll, is definitely a name to watch. If you remember last year, they signed a rookie free agent. His name was Noah Togiai, and they really liked him. And they tried to, we talked about this. They tried to pass him through waivers so they can put him on the practice squad, and they were just blindsided, right, when the Colts picked him up. So I'm guessing they won't make that same mistake this year around if Jack Stoll continues to be one of those guys that they really think can be an NFL tight end and a good developmental tight end.
Well, I was going to say, we touched on this with Andrew a little bit yesterday, but because of, Ertz looking like he won't be here, and then you're working on a contract extension with Goedert, you don't have, for this year, that depth chart looks pretty unsettled. It almost appears like Darius Slay and the other cornerback. You got Goedert, and if Ertz isn't here, what do you got?
Yeah, my favorite guy is still out there, and that's Richard Rodgers. I thought, sort of tongue-in-cheek, he was their most productive tight end last year, only because Carson seemed to only be able to throw completed passes to him and him only. You remember that Giants game where he basically caught half of Carson Wentz's completions. So he's a guy who fits the offense well. Well, I assume fits Nick Sirianni's offense well, can block, can catch, is a good veteran number 2. He's still out there. Isn't Trey Burton, as we speak right now, still out there?
I believe so.
Yeah, and he's got experience. So, I mean, the Eagles don't have to panic here. I know they didn't draft a kid, but you usually keep 3. Goedert will be 1. Stoll will have a chance to be the number 3 guy as a developmental rookie free agent. And then your backup, it may just not be here, or it may be a guy like Kroom or someone else who has a good camp.
Geoff, yesterday was June 1st, and that is a big day in the NFL. How did it affect the Eagles with some of the things that they now will do moving forward?
It's just cleared up a little more cap space because of the contracts with Malik Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey. Some of the money that they would have had to absorb this year now goes into next year. So it goes against next year's cap, which isn't an ideal thing, but it is now because the Eagles need cap space. They need to be able to pay rookies. They need to be able to potentially afford a number 2 cornerback like a Steven Nelson or anybody else who might be out there. And, of course, if they still want to make any trade, and we know Julio Jones is named out there, and then there is a degree of interest in him from the Eagles, obviously need some space there. So they need to have flexibility.
All right. Well, you just mentioned the Julio Jones thing. I want to ask you something about that. There are betting odds on this. Typically, the Eagles' odds are always going to be good. I feel like betting places know that Eagle fans are suckers. But are you surprised that the Eagles are high on that list? I mean, right now the favorite is Seattle, then Tennessee, Philadelphia's third. I mean, it's plus 225 Seattle, plus 250 Tennessee, plus 275 Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised only because of what you mentioned about how Vegas views, fan bases, interest, media reports fuel into it. And certainly the Eagles have been linked to Julio Jones. I don't know that it makes the most sense. I mean, of course it makes the Eagles better. I think there's no question about it. Gives them a lot of flexibility now with, if you had Julio Jones and where you're going to put Devontae Smith, you'll probably hit mix and match Devontae and Jalen Reagor at the Y and the Z a lot. And, Dallas Goedert will be a flex guy a lot. So you'll have some pretty good weaponry there along with Miles Sanders. And it really would cast into doubt some of the wide receivers that we talked about last year and whether they're going to be on the team, like a Hightower or a Watkins, things like that. It makes the team better because it makes any team better to have Julio Jones. It's not necessarily their biggest need.
After Moshe, if they went after Julio Jones, does that tell you that their mindset is we're good enough to, I don't want to say win the Super Bowl, but hey, we got Julio Jones. We're good enough to win this division.
Yeah, I think that's what they do anyway. Most cases, right? Yes, there have been some times, like in the last few years, where Howie said he's made certain moves because he felt the window was still open after winning the Super Bowl to win another. Right now, I feel like Howie is just simply trying to field the most competitive team possible while still turning the roster over. And you can do that. You can bring in Julio Jones and look at your wide receiver group and say, I'm still got the future here in Devontae Smith, in Jalen Reagor, in maybe a Watkins or a Hightower or Greg Ward or somebody else who I've drafted and developed. So it doesn't preclude him. People talk about taking snaps away. You're still going to get those guys on the field a lot, Reagor and Smith. I don't think it hurts, but you can't be in the camp of saying, I want Jalen Hurts to succeed, and I want to see what he can do this year, and then not be in the camp of, but he doesn't need a Julio Jones. You want him to have a great offensive line. You want him to have great weapons, because the best chance he has to succeed is to have that.
Yeah, and that's why. Okay, so I heard today, there was reports, that they don't think that they're looking. No one is willing to give up a first-round pick in the next draft coming up, but maybe a future first. But the best offer they've been kind of getting right now is like a third. I mean, I'd probably do it for a third, but are you giving up a first-round pick for Jones?
Not unless I absolutely have to. And then if I have to, you're asking me if I would do it.
Is it important enough, though? Is it important enough to you, Moshe, to get a guy like Jones around Devonta Smith and Jalen Reagor and Hurts?
Yeah, I think, but at the end of the day, it's still also about value. Yes, you consider that when you're making the trade, about the benefits that it will have for your team. Adam Kaplan brought this up on our last podcast. I think it was a really fair assessment that you give up a first, but not a clean first. In other words, you might get Julio and a third back, or Julio and a fourth, or make something conditional, so that you're not just totally giving up a first-round pick. You're getting something in return. That, to me, seems likeliest to happen. Is that, you might give up a first, but Atlanta's not just getting that. They're going to have to give up something along with Julio, because obviously you're taking that contract too.
Yeah, I know Adam has said that the Falcons aren't getting what they want in this deal yet, so that's why they are not going to pull the trigger. They're kind of
nobody ever gets what they want, right? The Eagles aren't getting what they want for Zach Ertz, and I'm sure the Packers will never get what they want for Aaron Rodgers. That's because teams, when you have stars, it hurts to have to part with them, and you never feel like you're getting value.
And the Eagles are similarly in the same place. They're not getting what they want for Zach Ertz either. Now, if they were to move Zach Ertz, Moshe, they will open up more cap space. What would they then do with said cap space?
Sign rookies, one, which it doesn't have to be all of them, because you only have to be responsible for the top 51, right, on your entire 90-man right now. I think that's what it's at. And some of the rookies will fall into the outside the 51, but you do need money to sign rookies, although they do have some right now. Obviously, if you're talking contract extensions with certain players who are in rookie deals, like a Dallas Goedert, potentially a Jordan Mailata, potentially a Josh Sweat. I'm thinking of guys who have already played 3 years and are eligible. Those aren't the type of guys who you get lower cap numbers, right? Because they have low cap numbers right now to begin with. So when you give them an extension, their cap number raises. You need money to be able to give to them. Derek Barnett is a guy who is on his rookie deal, but because the number is so exorbitant on the fifth-year option at $10 million, he possibly could get a lower cap number in year one by getting an extension. But for the most part, the three other guys I mentioned, their cap numbers would probably go up because of an extension.
And I guess you could say, hey, well, now they have room to target a upgrade at corner. I saw, I forget who it was who did, it might have been CBS Sports did the corner top, I don't know, Pro Football Focus, I think, is doing their top 30 for entering the season of each position. They had Steven Nelson as the 13th best corner, and they had Slay at 25th. So they're essentially saying if you brought Nelson in here, he'd be your best guy.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with those rankings. I'll say that right now. I've talked to 2 or 3 teams about Steven Nelson, including team that he's played for. And they view him as a solid number 2, number 3 type corner, a guy who at times kind of talks like he's better than he really is. So
that's pretty important in that position.
He would be the second best corner on the Eagles by far.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any doubting that, but I'm not ready to put him ahead of Darius Slay.
I thought those, and look, PFF puts out their stuff. It's a lot of off-season stuff to just kind of build content and get people talking, which they do a good job of. But if you look at it, you would think, Jason Kelce, number 5 center in football, Lane Johnson, number 10 tackle, Brandon Brooks, top 10 offensive guard. I think Sayamala was even in the top 30. You have everybody on the line is one of the best players in the league. Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave are top 20 at their positions. Brandon Graham came in at number 14 at his spot. So apparently they think there's better talent than maybe some of the fans do.
That's possible. I wrote back in February, that the offensive line and defensive line has talent on it. A lot of it wasn't healthy last year, but usually when you're good in the trenches, you can compete in games, and then it kind of comes down to how good does your quarterback play and how good is your coaching. So the Eagles are strong in the trenches theoretically. When you talk about rankings, I would ask, well, where was Carson Wentz ranked last year going into the year? Quarterbacks, probably top 10, top 11. He had just went 4-0 in December and then got hurt in Seattle. But, people had pretty good vibes about what he did in December. I don't think anybody had him ranked as the 28th best quarterback in the NFL, but that's probably what he was last year, maybe even lower than he might have been 30, 31. I haven't seen, I'm not going on any specific rankings, but the bottom line is that's the thing with these rankings. You just never know.
All right. Now, on that note, Anthony Harris, who they signed at safety in the offseason, was also written that was one of the best upgrades for any position in football last year, bringing Harris in to replace Mills. So I was kind of like, I feel like the Harris thing is kind of iffy because last year's interesting. He had 104 tackles, no picks. The year before, he had all these interceptions and very little tackles. So he's a tough guy, but apparently he's considered a pretty high-level upgrade over what you had the year before.
Wait, did you say the best upgrade in football? Somebody rated?
They did the top 20 upgrades. In other words, this guy replaced him.
Right.
Like J.J. Watt replacing this guy, that was the best upgrade in football.
Okay.
So Anthony Harris replacing Jalen Mills made the list of the best upgrades for a team.
Oh, okay, made the list. I thought you said was the best upgrade. I was like, wow, that's that would be
he
crazy.
Finished number 18 on the list of all the upgrades.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, obviously you're playing a whole different coverage here and a whole different scheme. And Anthony Harris has played in that scheme and started in that scheme and done a nice job in that scheme. I don't want to, overthink it here. I mean, he got his job because somebody else got hurt. Or when they were in their heyday as a defense, the Vikings, their defense was Andrew Sendejo. Their safeties were Andrew Sendejo and Harrison Smith. And Anthony Harris got a chance to move in there after some guys got hurt, and he played well enough to start, but he didn't get a long-term deal from the Vikings after getting the franchise tag, and he didn't get anything more than a one-year deal from the Eagles. So I don't want to sit here and talk like we went through this last year with Will Parks, to be honest, where a lot of people got very, very excited about Will Parks' potential and Jim Schwartz's defense, and took a discount and yada yada yada, and he didn't even make it through the whole year. So I trust me, I think
that
Anthony
was a bizarre
Harris
situation too.
Yes, it was. I think Anthony Harris is going to be a good upgrade. I think he's perfect. He'll make it through the year, and hopefully he'll play well enough to earn an extension. But I don't want to treat this like this is the same as getting T.O. to replace Todd Pinkston or something.
In your by the way, just on a completely different note because we're running out of time here. In your football history of covering NFL athletes with a meniscus tear, how long are they typically out for?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one because of the Embiid situation. So there's all types, and it's different for different positions in football. I've seen some offensive linemen either play through it or have a procedure and be back in 2 weeks. I think Todd Herman's was back basically in 2 weeks after a minor meniscus surgery, and 1 week was the bye week, so only missed like one game. But these guys just they go back and forth and back and forth. There's not a lot of lateral movement all the time, and they can kind of play through that kind of pain. Like Joel, I mean, he's so agile, and all of his game is his Euro step and his cutting to the basket. It's hard for me to think that if he has even a slightly significant meniscus tear that he can play the same way. I think he can play, Mike, right? I mean, you can play through the pain. You might make it worse, though. You certainly can make a small tear into a bigger tear. But how do you get Joel to be Joel when he can't do some of those things? That's where I think it becomes really difficult.
Yeah, I agree. And look, even if he misses a week or two, are you getting the same Joel Embiid when he comes back? Probably not. And we've seen this play before. All right.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Geoff Mosher at Geoff Mosher NFL. The Inside the Birds podcast drops tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. And, of course, all the stuff on the Inside the Birds platform. Good Q&A this week. He's got some good stuff up over at InsideTheBirds.com. All right, Moshe. I'll talk to you, pal.
All right. Thanks, man.
And Adam Kaplan is in tomorrow as we will continue our look at the Eagles offseason